I sit alone on a wooden bench near the stern of the ship, drawing my coat tighter against the chill. The air is biting cold, the temperature near freezing, and yet I find it strangely peaceful here. All around me stretches the vast Atlantic, an endless expanse of black velvet. The ocean is completely calm tonight. The sea looks as smooth as glass, reflecting the countless stars glimmering above. With no moon in the sky, the darkness is gentle and absolute, broken only by the faint glow of the Titanic's deck lights and the lantern-like twinkle of starlight on the water. In this stillness, the ship's engines produce a soft, steady thrum that vibrates up through the bench and into my bones, a comforting, mechanical heartbeat in the quiet night. I close my eyes for a moment and just listen to the night. The whisper of wind through the ropes, the distant, muffled laughter of a few fellow passengers lingering in the smoking room, and the far-off shushing of the ship's wake as we cut through the calm sea. From somewhere below, I hear the soft clink of fine china, or perhaps a closing door. Small reminders that even at this late hour, I am not entirely alone on this moving island of steel. Most passengers have retired to their cabins by now, and a gentle quiet has settled over the decks. Here in the open air, I feel blessed to witness this moment of solitude in the middle of the ocean. The Titanic carries over 2,000 souls, yet right now, I might as well be the only person in the world. Wrapping my arms around myself, I lean on the rail and peer down at the water far below. The ship's wake is a pale froth in the darkness, fading into nothing. The stars in the sky are so bright that I can see their reflection trembling softly on the black water. It's a breathtaking sight, nature's own gentle illumination, mingling with the ship's warm, electric glow from the portholes and deck lamps behind me. As I watch, a shooting star skims across the heavens and disappears. I quietly make a wish for a safe voyage, for the new life awaiting us in America, for happiness. The future feels as boundless as the sea tonight. With a contented sigh, I rub my gloved hands together for warmth, noting the little puffs of cloud my breath makes in the frigid air. In the back of my mind, the stewardess's mention of icebergs returns briefly. I gaze out over the dark, flat horizon. There is only the illusion of infinity out there. Sea and sky blur together. If there were an iceberg, how would anyone see it in time on a night like this, with no waves and no moon? Perhaps the lookouts have a nearly impossible task, one I do not envy. But I trust in this ship and her crew. The Titanic feels invincible, imperturbable. She slices through the calm sea at over 22 knots, steady and strong, carrying us all forward as if on a gentle giant's back. I run my hand along the smooth wooden rail, feeling the cool dew that has settled. It's late, by my pocket watch, nearly 11:30 p.m. Reluctantly, I decide I should go back inside soon, to the cozy cabin where my husband is likely dozing. Yet I linger just a minute more, drinking in the serenity of this night. I want to remember the way the Atlantic looks At this very moment, vast and calm and glittering with starlight, an eternal mirror of the sky. In this quiet lull, I feel a profound sense of wonder and gratitude. What a privilege to be here, alive and awake, floating between sea and sky on the largest ship ever built. My life, with all its hopes and uncertainty, I whisper a silent prayer of thanks for this moment, for the calm ocean, for the gentle night, for the loved ones I carry in my heart. If ever there was a perfect night for reflection, this is it. And so I sit a little longer, letting the Titanic's steady motion lull my thoughts, completely unaware of the fate that is slowly bearing down upon us through the dark waters ahead. It happened so subtly at first that I almost mistake it for the ship adjusting to a wave. One moment I am gazing at the stars, and the next I feel a faint shudder ripple through the Titanic's massive frame. The bench quivers under me as if someone slammed a distant door, or we've run over something far below. I hear a gentle, muffled grinding noise that seems to come from the starboard side, forward. A brief scratching sound that makes me sit up straight. Then, a second later, another, slightly more pronounced vibration passes through the deck, as if the ship gave a small, unexpected lurch and then righted itself. I grip the bench, heart quickening, and scan the darkness. No cry comes from the crow's nest, no alarm bells. In fact, everything falls eerily quiet again. The Titanic continues gliding onward without any obvious change, and for an instant I wonder if I imagined the whole thing. My mind races through benign possibilities. Perhaps we've dropped a propeller blade, or hit a patch of rough sea. The night still looks calm and clear as before. There was no massive crash or impact, no obvious evidence of disaster, just those two strange tremors that disturbed the stillness. I stand and lean over the starboard rail, peering into the blackness, but I see nothing out of the ordinary. The ocean stretches blank and empty to the horizon. If something is out there, it's invisible in the dark. Looking forward along the ship's length, I can make out the murmur of voices from the bridge, but no panicked shouts. Far below on the well deck, a few crewmen seem to be walking about, their lanterns swaying. Nothing suggests urgent distress. And yet, something feels off. Then I notice it, the deep thrumming pulse of the engines, which has been ever present, begins to fade. Within a minute or two, the vibration that hummed through the deck planks ceases entirely, and the Titanic's forward motion seems to slow. A creeping unease tugs at me. I gather my skirts and hurry inside, descending the few steps from the open deck into the warmer enclosed promenade. A steward I pass in the corridor looks calm, though curious. He's standing by the doorway with a few others as if waiting for instructions. "Excuse me," I ask quietly. "Do you know why we've stopped?" The young man gives a polite half-smile. "Not sure, miss," he replies evenly. "I don't imagine it's anything serious." His tone is reassuring, almost unconcerned. I nod, trying to adopt his ease. Perhaps he's right. Likely a minor mechanical issue. The ship feels perfectly fine. There's no sense of danger. Still, my duty is to my husband. I make my way down the quiet, carpeted corridor to our second-class cabin on E-deck. My footsteps quick but measured, so as not to alarm anyone I pass. In the stillness, I can hear snatches of low conversation behind some cabin doors. Other passengers awakened by the cessation of the engines, now wondering as I am. No official announcement has been made, and indeed, none of the crew in our section seem perturbed. I reach our cabin and slip inside. The lights are dimmed to a soft glow. My husband, Robert, is lying in the lower bunk, not yet asleep, a half-read novel still in hand. He looks up in mild surprise and concern when he sees my face. I must appear unsettled, with my hair a bit loose from the night air and my cheeks flushed. Gently, he asks, "What is it? Are you all right?" I close the door behind me. "I think something's happened," I whisper, trying to keep my voice calm. The ship shuddered twice, and they've stopped the engines. Everything feels still now. He swings his legs over the side of the bunk and sits up, listening. Indeed, the usual vibration and distant throb of the engines are absent. He frowns, thoughtfully, then reaches out to pat my hand. "I'm sure it's nothing serious," he says in a reassuring murmur. "Perhaps we've had a minor bump with some floating debris, or they're adjusting something in the engine room. These big ships can make strange noises." I exhale and nod, allowing his calm demeanor to steady me. Robert has a way of making me feel safe. He's practical and level-headed, exactly who I want near in uncertain moments. "Maybe I smile back gratefully. "All right, I'll wait here." Part of me wants to go with him, but I decide to trust his judgment and not overreact. After all, inside the cabin, everything feels normal and cozy. The light fixtures softly vibrate for a moment, as if a generator kicked in, and I hear a distant, muffled clang, perhaps the watertight doors being closed far below, though I do not know it at the time. Otherwise, all remains still. Robert leaves the cabin with a gentle squeeze of my shoulder. I sit down on the edge of the bed, suddenly aware of the quiet around me. In the silence, the small details become pronounced. The steady ticking of our travel clock on the bedside table, the faint creaking of the ship's wood paneling as it settles, the soft rustle of our half-packed belongings under the bunk. I realize that the ship's slight motion has changed. Without the engines, there is a new stillness. We seem to simply float, paused in time and space. I run a hand nervously over the coverlet, then stand up again, too restless to sit. Perhaps I should put on something warmer in case we're up for a bit. I decide to change out of my evening dress into a simpler skirt and my woolen sweater, and I lace up my more practical shoes. As I dress, I catch myself listening intently for any sign of commotion from the hallway. Laughter, raised voices, anything. But all I hear are muffled voices, calm and conversational. Through the wall, I can just make out a man in the next cabin chuckling. "I'm not about to go out on a cold deck at midnight," and someone replying with a jovial tone. It seems others also believe there is no cause for alarm. To distract myself, I fold our travel blankets and straighten up the few items in our room. My fingers brush over the life belts stowed atop the wardrobe, boxy canvas vests we were shown upon boarding and then promptly ignored. I wonder absently if we might be asked to put them on if there's any real emergency. But I quickly push that thought aside. Surely we won't be needing life jackets tonight. After what feels like an eternity, but is likely mere minutes, the cabin door opens and Robert steps back in. He has his cap on, and his cheeks are a bit flushed from walking briskly. I search his face for answers. "Well?" I ask softly. He gives a one-shouldered shrug. "Apparently we struck some ice," he says, as if even he finds it a bit unbelievable. "I overheard a steward telling another passenger that an iceberg brushed the side of the ship. They say it's nothing to worry about." "An iceberg?" I repeat, eyes widening. He holds up his hands reassuringly. "Just a glancing blow, they think." I went up toward the boat deck, saw a few officers and gentlemen out inspecting. One fellow actually said he saw a large iceberg passing by, towering above the decks before it faded into the dark. They've likely stopped to examine the ship as a precaution to be sure nothing's amiss. But everyone I encountered seemed quite calm. In fact, he manages a light chuckle. Some card players in the second-class smoking room were carrying on with their game as if nothing happened. One even joked he'd like some ice for his whiskey if someone would fetch it from the deck. Despite myself, I smile at the absurd image. Titanic's passengers, ever dignified, turning a collision into a mere quip. It eases my anxiety a little. "So they really think it's fine?" He nods and drapes a shawl around my shoulders. The crew kept saying, "No danger at all." I also noticed a few chunks of ice actually on the forward well deck when I looked down from the railing, likely knocked off the berg as we scraped by. It's almost surreal. But from what I gathered, they're confident this ship is in no peril. I breathe out, realizing I had been holding my breath. The Titanic is reputed to be unthinkable. Certainly a bit of ice can't do her in. "Thank heavens," I murmur. Feeling greatly relieved, I allow myself to laugh softly at the notion of an iceberg. Imagine, in April of all times, I guess the Devil's Hole did have ice after all, I think wryly, recalling the stewardess's warning. We exchange a knowing smile. Perhaps we ought to have heeded her advice more seriously, but who could really believe an iceberg would cross our path on such a calm, starry night? "Shall we try to sleep then?" I suggest, half joking, but even as I say the words, a patter of fast footsteps echoes in the hallway outside. We both turn our heads toward the door. The sound is unmistakable now. Many people are moving about, some heading upward. A muffled voice, possibly an officer or steward, calls out something indistinct, followed by sharp knocks on doors down the corridor. Our eyes meet. There's a moment of hesitation. Then, calmly, Robert says, "Let's bring our coats. Perhaps it's best if we go up and see what's happening, just to be prudent." I agree. I grab my long overcoat and hat. He puts on his overcoat and finds our life belts with a wry grin. "Just in case we're told to wear them," he says gently. We both leave them draped around our arms for now. It still seems too dramatic to actually put them on. As we step into the corridor, I catch a glimpse of our reflection in the mirror. My face is unusually pale, eyes wide but determined, and Robert behind me looking concerned yet steady. I loop my arm through his. Around us, other cabin doors are opening. Women in dressing gowns, men in lounge coats, fellow second-class passengers exchanging curious glances. There is a strange hush, coupled with an undercurrent of excitement, as if we've all been woken for a late-night adventure. At the far end of the corridor, a steward is speaking with a cluster of passengers. We walk that way and hear him say, "Captain's orders, please dress warmly and proceed to the boat decks, just a precaution." People murmur at that. I see one lady tightening the belt of her robe, another pulling on boots. One gentleman in evening clothes still carries a glass of brandy as if he refuses to be rattled. No one is shouting emergency or anything of the sort. In fact, a sense of quiet orderliness prevails. I notice no signs of panic or distress among the crew. Their faces reflect urgency but not alarm. It reassures me that we are indeed just being cautious. "Life belts on, everyone," the steward adds firmly, though politely. "All passengers up on deck with life belts on, please." Robert squeezes my hand and finally we comply. We each tie on our bulky canvas life vests over our clothes. The device feels awkward and stiff, its cork lining bumping against my sides. I never imagined actually needing to wear this, and the act of donning it makes my heart flutter. Still, many around us are treating it almost as a lark. I hear nervous chuckles and a jest or two. "What an unexpected costume party we have here," one man remarks, drawing polite laughs. With our coats over our life jackets as far as they'll stretch, we join the growing stream of passengers making their way to the stairs. I glance back at our little cabin one last time, warm light glowing within, our scattered belongings, never guessing it may be the last time I see it. Then we ascend toward the decks above, following the flow of people and the gentle urging of the crew. At this moment, there is still no real fear in me, only curiosity and a slight thrill of the unknown. I fully expect we'll spend a short time up top, perhaps see an impressive iceberg drifting by, and then be told to return to our cabins once everything is sorted. As we climb the final steps to the boat deck, I take a deep breath and steady myself. The night air pours in, cold and dark, as we emerge outside to see what this midnight interruption has in store. On the boat deck, cool chaos unfolds under the stars. Passengers are milling about in thick coats and life jackets, forming uneasy clusters near the illuminated entrances. I notice at once that most here are women, many clutching shawls, or children, and a scattering of men who mostly stand back toward the walls or behind their families. The ship's officers and crew move with brisk purpose, their caps and brass buttons gleaming in the electric deck lights. I see them unlocking and removing the covers from the lifeboats which hang on davits along the rail. A few sailors are coiling ropes, cranking winches, preparing these boats to be swung out. It finally sinks in. They are getting the lifeboats ready. We really might have to leave the Titanic. The realization sends a chill through me colder than any night air. I squeeze Robert's arm. He returns a reassuring nod, but I can feel him tense up too at the sight of crew mustering passengers toward the boats.
"Everyone, please keep moving, keep walking forward, please,"
calls a steward gently, shepherding people toward the nearest boat station. An officer's authoritative voice rises above the murmur.
"Women and children to the lifeboats first."
The order is repeated along the deck by other crewmen until it hums in my ears. Women and children first. I look up at my husband, my heart clenching. He forces a small smile. "Don't worry," he whispers. "It's just a precaution. They'll have us back on board in no time." I nod, not trusting my voice. We shuffle with the crowd toward a lifeboat on the port side. It's an eerie scene lit by deck lanterns and the glow from the promenade windows. Despite the brisk calls of officers, people move slowly, reluctantly. There is no mad rush, rather an agonizing hesitation in many faces. No one truly wants to believe we must actually abandon ship. The Titanic still feels solid beneath our feet, and she shows no obvious signs of distress except a barely perceptible tilt forward that I only now discern by the slant of the deck chairs against the rail. Nearby, two elegantly dressed first-class ladies cling to each other, eyes wide. Is it really necessary for us to get in those tiny boats? One asks the officer in charge, her voice quavering. Just a precaution, madam, he replies with a courteous bow. Captain's orders. Over the ambient noise of concerned voices, another sound weaves its way into my awareness. Music. I catch the strains of a ragtime tune floating in the cold night air. The ship's band has assembled somewhere near the grand staircase entrance and begun to play. The melody is incongruously cheerful and bright, a popular waltz that glides over the hushed crowd. It's as if they are trying to keep everyone's spirits up, and indeed, a few people actually smile at the familiarity of the song. The jaunty music, combined with the extraordinary situation, gives the whole scene a surreal, dreamlike quality. "Step lively now, ladies," comes a call. The first lifeboat on this side, boat 6 I later learned, is being loaded right in front of us. It hangs just over the railing, down a few feet from the deck, accessible by a gangway door and a small swing-down ladder. A handful of women are gathered, being assisted by seamen into the 6 wooden craft. I recognize the sturdy figure of Second Officer Lightoller overseeing on the deck. "Any more ladies here? Women and children only in this boat," he shouts. A few more women step forward hesitantly. I see a mother send her 2 older daughters ahead of her with a kiss before following them. The boat is far from full, perhaps only 24 people in it, but no more women seem to be coming at the moment. Some stand back, shaking their heads, unwilling to leave their husbands. Lightoller peers around, then, finding no additional women immediately at hand, he nods to the crew. "Lower away!" I watch in disbelief as that lifeboat is lowered, not even half filled with passengers. There were more seats, I'm sure of it. Yet it descended partially empty into the dark. The lady beside me murmurs, "Good Lord, there were only a few in that one. Why didn't they wait?" Her husband mutters back, "They'll fill the rest from the deck below, perhaps." But we exchange uneasy glances. It dawns on us that many lifeboats might depart without using all the space, simply because people are reluctant to get in, or not enough women came forward in time. I bite my lip, my mind racing. There are over 2,000 of us aboard, and only 20 lifeboats. I know this fact from some after-dinner conversation early in the voyage. I had scarcely paid attention then, believing as we all did in the unsinkable reputation of this ship. But now that arithmetic weighs ominously on me. 20 boats can only carry about half of us at best. I shiver, and not from the cold. A sudden whoosh and bang makes me jump. A bright flash streaks into the sky from the bridge area. They have fired a distress rocket. The starry vault is lit up briefly in white illumination as the flare explodes high above. Then a shower of sparks falls and darkness returns. A collective gasp murmurs through the crowd. One little boy clings to his father's leg and asks in a trembling voice, "Are they signaling for help, Papa?" I don't catch the father's quiet answer, but the meaning is unmistakable. We are indeed signaling for rescue. We are truly in an emergency now. My husband and I step back from the edge as crew begin preparing another lifeboat, Boat 8, just behind us. A chief steward urges women forward to this next boat. "Come along, ladies, please, no time to hesitate." I notice that fewer women move this time. Many stand frozen next to their husbands, shaking their heads or weeping quietly that they won't leave. One woman calls out, "Will my husband be able to follow on the next boat?" The officer loading the boat does not meet her eyes as he helps her up to the rail. "There will be another boat coming, ma'am," is all he says softly. I cling to Robert's arm. We have made no explicit decision, but it is implicit between us. I am not leaving him yet. We stay back as others board, allowing those more willing or those with children to go first. My heart twists watching each painful parting. Husbands reassuring their wives with forced smiles, older sons insisting their mothers go on without them. In one case, a young woman outright refuses to get in the boat and is pulled back by her husband. They resolve to stay together a while longer. The result is that Boat 8 also goes down only half full. I see our ship's deck officers exchanging concerned looks in the dim light. Time seems to accelerate and slow down all at once. Another rocket is fired with a loud crack, painting wan faces stark white for a brief moment. The band continues to play upbeat ragtime tunes one after another, though I sense a tender strain beneath one violin's melody, as if emotion is seeping through their disciplined facade. It's now past 1 a.m. by my rough guess. The bow of the Titanic has taken on a noticeable downward angle. You can feel it when standing on the deck, a slight incline that wasn't there before. A trickle of fear starts to erode my remaining hope. The unsinkable ship is, unmistakably, sinking, little by little. The sea is creeping up her lower decks. I can smell an icy, brine scent, mixed with something like new paint and wet metal. Around us, the urgency increases. Officers' voices grow louder, though still controlled. They are now directing people to whichever boats remain. Lifeboats on both sides are being filled and lowered in steady succession. I lose track of which number is which. The starboard side, I hear, has already launched several boats quickly. Our port side is slower, taking time to find women for each boat. The result is tragic. I can see across the ship, a starboard lifeboat descending nearly empty, just as ours have. Why aren't they putting more in? There are plenty willing to go now, I exclaim in frustration. By now, more steerage passengers have arrived on deck. I see families from third class, identifiable by their simpler clothing and bewildered expressions, huddled together. Some have only thin shawls or coats over their nightclothes. Many look chilled to the bone and terrified, having just managed to reach the boat deck from the lower quarters. God knows what hurdles they faced to get here. I recall the maze of corridors and stairs that separate the classes. One third-class mother stands near me, a babe in her arms and a little girl clinging to her skirt. The mother's lips are blue with cold. She has no coat, having run up in such haste. Without a second thought, I undo my woolen shawl and gently wrap it around her shoulders from behind. She turns in surprise, and I simply press her arm and nod. Her eyes glisten with gratitude. Neither of us speaks a word. There's no time and nothing to say. But in that moment, sharing our humanity matters more than any notions of class or wealth. We exchange a small, sad smile. Just then, an officer, I believe Third Officer Pittman, approaches, carrying a clipboard and looking about. When he sees me, he steps forward and touches my elbow. "Madam, are you with child?" he asks hurriedly, noticing my protective stance near the third-class family. I shake my head. "No, sir." He nods and turns to the mother beside me. "You, ma'am, and your little ones, this way, quickly." He gestures to two seamen who help that young family toward the next boat. I watch as the mother, still draped in my shawl, disappears into the crowd of women pressing forward. My heart lifts slightly to know at least those innocent children will have a chance. Then the officer fixes his gaze on me and my husband. "You, madam, you must go now to this boat," he says firmly, indicating the lifeboat being readied right behind him. I start to protest. "No, I cannot." But he gives me a gentle, almost imploring look. In his eyes, I see terror hidden behind love, the realization that time has run out. The deck beneath us gives a sudden groan and a shudder. It's clear the Titanic is in her death throes now. We have perhaps minutes left. Tears spring to my eyes. My throat constricts as I nod feebly. We both know this may be our last moment together, yet we keep our composure. There is a strange, almost holy quiet between us despite the tumult surrounding. He helps me forward toward the lifeboat. It's nearly full of women huddled closely with a few crewmen standing by the ropes. They reach for me, and as I climb up onto the rail, Robert steadies me one last time. Our faces are inches apart. He manages a smile, that same beloved, reassuring smile he gave me earlier in the cabin. "I'll be right behind you on the next boat," he says softly, lying for my sake. My eyes overflow with tears. "You must," I whisper. "I'll be waiting. Please be safe." My voice breaks. He presses my hand to his lips briefly. "Go on. God be with you," he chokes out. In that second, we both hold each other's gaze, trying to memorize everything, to convey all the love and gratitude and goodbye that words cannot hold. Then gently but decisively, he helps lift me over the rail and down into the lifeboat. I feel the solid grip of a seaman on my arms as I am passed into the mass of bodies in the boat. I find a seat on the wooden fort, packed shoulder to shoulder with other women, some sobbing softly, others deathly silent. The boat rocks slightly, suspended high above the ocean, as the crew prepares to lower us. I refuse to release my grip on Robert's hand until the very last second, our fingers stretching and then slipping apart as the gap between the boat and deck widens. "I love you," I call up to him, my voice breaking. He stands at the rail, life jacket on, silhouetted against the bright stars. "I love you," he calls back, loud and clear, with a strength that makes me believe for one sweet moment that it isn't the final farewell. Then a sailor cries, "Lower away," and our lifeboat begins to descend. I keep my eyes fixed on my husband as long as I can. He is waving at me in the darkness, joining a group of men left behind on deck, their figures receding. I hold on to that image of him standing there, brave and tender, until we drop down along the hull and he is lost from my sight. I said into the life, flying success, liking and riches and all me led. The lifeboat jerks and sways as we are lowered toward the ocean. We descend 20, 30, 40 feet, passing row upon row of brightly lit portholes from which faces peer out. In one window, I briefly lock eyes with a man, still in his cabin, clutching the sill. I wonder why he hasn't come up. Perhaps he cannot, or chose not to. Then we are gliding past the Titanic's immense black hull, which is slanting subtly forward. I can see the white paint of her name on the bow, now nearly at the waterline. My breath catches. The ship is clearly lower in the water than when I first got in this boat. We reach the sea with a gentle splash. The lifeboat rocks, and icy Atlantic spray stings my face. "Unhook," calls our coxswain, and crewmen release the ropes. We are afloat. Around us in the darkness, I count only a few other lifeboat lanterns bobbing, tiny pinpricks of light in a vast black sea. The Titanic towers above us still, an enormous, brilliantly lit apparition against the night. For a moment, I am overwhelmed by her sheer scale and beauty from this vantage point. Her rows of lights twinkling, the great funnels soaring into the starry sky. It looks as if she were a festive ocean liner on some normal night, not a vessel about to meet its doom. "Our Father, who art in heaven," a woman near me begins to pray in a ragged voice. Others join in softly. I clutch the sides of the lifeboat, torn between watching the ship and covering my ears. Before long, the prayer trails off. Most are too mesmerized or horrified to continue. "Row, lads! Get us clear!" orders the seaman in charge, a young officer with a determined set to his jaw. He knows we must pull away to avoid being sucked down when the Titanic founders. Our lifeboat's oars are put out, and some of the women join the crew in pulling on them. Numbly, I take up one oar as well, heaving with all the strength left in me. We manage to put some distance between our little boat and the monstrous ship, which is now visibly sinking at the bow. After a few minutes, the officer has us hold water. We bob on the calm sea, rising and falling gently with the swell. From here, we have an almost panoramic view of the Titanic's final throes. I cannot tear my eyes away. God help them," murmurs an older woman beside me, her arm around a shivering teenage girl. We have paused our rowing at perhaps a few hundred yards distance. Our officer wants to stay close enough to possibly pick up swimmers later, he says, but not so close as to be overwhelmed. So we drift, dozens of us in this little boat, witnesses to the final agony of our ship. Time blurs. The next minutes etch themselves into my soul. I see things I can barely process in the moment. The Titanic's bow plunging deeper and deeper, her stern rising ever so slowly higher. The sea, which was so calm earlier, is now beginning to churn around the sinking giant. At one point, a huge rumbling noise reaches our ears, machinery or cargo shifting internally, and some screams of alarm from those still aboard. One of Titanic's enormous funnels emits a boom and a burst of steam as the pressure inside fins release. The lights flicker, but miraculously remain on. Against the night sky, I can clearly discern groups of passengers clustered on the stern now, as the bow is almost submerged. They look like ants clinging to a tilted table. In our lifeboat, many avert their eyes or weep into their hands, unable to watch. I cannot not watch. though every detail wounds me. Somewhere among those hundreds still on deck is my dear husband. I imagine him standing, perhaps with a hand on the rail, watching our lifeboat's tiny light recede, or maybe helping others don life jackets, being the altruistic man he is. I picture him in my mind, and silently I send up a desperate prayer. Please, please be among those who survive this. The band's music changes, or perhaps it's only my ears playing tricks. But I fancy I hear a different tune now, a gentle hymn carried over the cold air. Later, some would insist the final song was "Nearer, My God, to Thee," played bravely by those musicians as a last comfort to the passengers. In this moment, whatever the melody, it is achingly poignant. The notes drift across the water and make their way into our lifeboat, where sobs hush and even the frightened children look up for a moment, calmed by the unearthly beauty of that music amid the horror. Suddenly, a terrible roar surges from the Titanic. It is a noise unlike any I have ever heard, a cacophony of metallic groaning, deep explosions, and desperate human cries all at once. Our heads whip around. The ship's enormous stern tilts up sharply, and dark figures tumble down the decks into the sea. I gasp aloud, one hand flying to my mouth.
With a thunderous cracking sound, the Titanic literally breaks in two, her massive steel frame unable to withstand the stress. I see sparks spewing forth in a great ripping noise as the ship splits apart amidships. The forward half slips under the waves almost immediately, with a hiss and a roar so loud we can hear it from afar. The aft half bobbles momentarily, then uprights itself, floating in place. For a moment I foolishly wonder if that half might remain afloat, but that hope is brief. Soon, the stern section begins its final ascent into the vertical. Incredibly, some lights are still glowing on that part of the ship, illuminating the tragic scene like a macabre stage. For a few seconds, the stern of Titanic stands nearly upright against the starry sky, towering black with her giant propellers, now visible above the water. I catch a glimpse of tiny forms clinging to that upended deck, and a faint collective wail reaches our ears, the last cry of the doomed. Then, with an almost graceful slowness, that tall, dark shape slips down into the ocean. The lights blink out at last, swallowed by the sea. The great ship is gone. We sit in stunned silence, our lifeboat rising and falling on the rippling waves that now radiate outward. Everything is dark, save for the stars and the feeble glimmers of a few lifeboat lanterns scattered on the water. For a heartbeat, it is as if the night itself holds its breath. Then it begins. The voices from the water, a sound that will haunt me all my life. Where the Titanic has just vanished, there now rises a chorus of screams, pleas, and cries. Hundreds of voices calling out in panic and despair across the otherwise quiet sea. "Oh, dear God, those poor people," moans a lady at the bow of our boat. She covers her ears, sobbing uncontrollably. Many of us begin to cry anew, the horror of that sound piercing us through. In the darkness, we cannot see the throngs of people thrashing in the freezing water, but we can hear them, and it is unbearable. "We have to go back," suddenly exclaims one of the women in our boat, a strong-voiced American lady. "We must try to pull some from the water or they'll die." A few of us murmur agreement and make motions as if to row towards the cries. I find myself reaching for an oar instinctively. But our officer, 5th Officer Lowe, as I later learned his name, restrains us. "Hold steady," he commands, pain evident in his own voice. He knows the cruel calculus. If we row into that mass of desperate people, our small boat could be swamped by those trying to clamber in, dooming our...
And so we sit floating, listening to the cries for help that we cannot answer. One by one, over the longest minutes of my life, those voices begin to fade. The screaming softens into whimpers, and then, chillingly soon, there is nothing but silence. The ocean has claimed them. I find that I have been holding another woman's hand, the mother I gave my shawl to. She is now seated next to me with her 2 children curled at her feet, alive and safe for the moment. We cling to each other like sisters, tears streaming down our faces. As the last sobbing echo dies out across the dark water, the night is eerily quiet again. Just as it was a few hours ago, on the Titanic's deck when I marveled at the stars. Only now, the majesty of that quiet is replaced by an overwhelming grief and the numb shock of survival. In the calm that follows, many in our boat begin to softly pray, or to murmur the names of loved ones lost. I sit trembling, whispering my husband's name, over and over, like a broken incantation. "Robert, please, Robert." I stare at the spot where the great ship went down, half expecting to see her lights reappear, or this all to be a nightmare. But there is only the flat, black ocean, reflecting the indifferent stars above. We survivors are left adrift in our little lifeboat, surrounded by night and the awful void where Titanic once was. It is 2:20 a.m. by someone's pocket watch later, I learn. 2 hours and 40 minutes after we struck the iceberg. But time has lost all meaning. In my heart, a piece of it remains that exact moment forever. The moment the Titanic sank, and with her, over 1,500 souls were lost, including, I fear, the life of my beloved. Time drifts strangely in the lifeboat. We sit in darkness, huddled together for warmth, scarcely speaking above a whisper. Some attempt to row intermittently, more to keep from freezing than with any real destination. There is nowhere to go but this empty ocean. The stars wheel overhead, impassive as they have for millennia, over countless lives and deaths. I feel utterly spent, hollowed out by shock and grief. In the quiet, I find myself listening intently, hoping in vain to hear a voice, one voice, calling from the distance. But the night is mercifully silent now, the earlier screams having faded to nothing. Only the gentle slap of water on the sides of our life.
Then, after what might be an hour, though it feels like ages, one of the crew in our boat suddenly stirs. "Look there," he says, pointing to the southwest. We follow his gesture and see it, a faint, distant glow of light low on the horizon. Our hearts leap collectively. Could it be? Moments later, a bright white rocket arcs into the sky from that direction, bursting into a brief starburst. It is answering our distress. A ship is coming. A weak cheer rises from our boat. I feel a jolt of emotion, something like hope, for the first time in what feels like an eternity. "The Carpathia," our officer says with certainty, naming the Cunard liner that had answered Titanic's wireless calls.
He checks his pocket watch and mutters, "About 3:30 a.m. now." Indeed, it has been around an hour and a half since the sinking. The sight of Carpathia's lights, first spotted around 3:30, greatly cheers us survivors. We are not alone. Help is on the way. Slowly, oh so slowly, the rescue ship draws nearer. She must thread her way carefully, for as the dawn's first gray light creeps into the sky, we begin to see what surrounds us. I catch my breath. The world that was invisible in the black of night is now revealed. We are floating amid a vast field of ice. Great chunks of ice and dozens of icebergs of varying size dot the sea around us, silent sentinels in the growing light. One of them, not far off, is colossal, perhaps 150 or 200 feet high, a veritable mountain of bluish-white glinting in the pale dawn. It sends a shiver through me. To imagine that very berg might be the one that sealed the Titanic's fate. Scattered between the larger bergs are smaller growlers and floes, and among them, heart-rendingly, we see bits of debris from the Titanic. A deck chair here, a cork life jacket bobbing there. In the gentle pastel light of approaching morning, the scene is eerily tranquil, as though the ocean itself is trying to cover the horror with a delicate hush. Our lifeboat and several others nearby begin to converge as the RMS Carpathia steams toward us, her single yellow funnel and green running lights standing out in the dawn. We wave a small oil lantern, and some raise colored shawls or handkerchiefs. The Carpathia responds with more rockets and a long whistle blast. I feel weak tears of gratitude on my cheeks. Never have I seen a sight as welcome as that sturdy ship coming to pluck us from this vast, cold ocean. One by one, the lifeboats are picked up. When it's our turn, crewmen on the Carpathia call down and throw ropes. The children and injured are hoisted up first in canvas slings. I watch as the baby and little girl from our boat are gently pulled upwards, bundled in a mail sack like precious cargo. When my turn comes, I find I can barely stand. Two sailors have to half lift me to the rope ladder. I summon what strength remains and climb, rung by rung, with frozen, trembling limbs. Kind arms reach out over the rail and literally haul me onto the Carpathia's deck. The solid feeling of that metal deck under my feet nearly buckles my knees with relief. We survivors, only 710 of us out of the 2,224 passengers and crew, are finally safe on board. What follows is a blur of compassion and pain. The Carpathia's passengers and crew, many still in their night clothes, rush to wrap us in blankets, to press hot tea or brandy into our hands. I am led to a saloon that has been converted into a makeshift hospital and refuge. Everywhere around me are scenes of heart-rending reunion and devastating loss. A young woman next to me suddenly cries out. She has spotted her husband among those rescued from another lifeboat, and they collapse into each other's arms, sobbing. But just as many others scan the faces on deck with growing desperation, not finding the ones they seek. For every scene of joy as families reunite, there are multiple heartbreaks as loved ones fail to reappear. As for me, I wander in a daze from group to group on Carpathia's deck, unwilling to give up searching. I look for my Robert, in every line of haggard, soot-streaked face I pass. I call his name softly, again and again, hoping, praying, he will answer, "Here!" But he is not there. Each passing minute confirms the truth I cannot fully absorb. He did not survive. The man who held my hand through so many hopes and hardships, who smiled and promised he'd catch the next boat, he is gone. I sink onto a coil of rope by the ship's rail, wrap the blanket tightly around my shoulders, and allow myself at last to weep openly. The sun rises higher, bringing a gentle warmth back into the air. It should be a beautiful morning. The sea now glitters a cool silver blue, and the icebergs stand majestic and incongruous all around us, glowing in the golden light. The world looks so peaceful that it's almost impossible to reconcile it with the nightmare of a few hours before. I find myself gazing out over the calm water, dotted with...
Many of us on Carpathia's deck stand silently, side by side at the railing, looking out toward where the Titanic went down. Though we are strangers, we share an indescribable bond now. Some pray, some just stare, lost in their thoughts. I notice one elderly gentleman remove his hat and hold it to his chest. I do the same with my blanket shawl, clutching it like a talisman. We all know we have witnessed something awful, something that has changed us forever. As the morning wears on, the Carpathia's crew continues to tend to us with infinite care. They bring us dry clothes donated by kind passengers. They feed us hot soup, though few of us can eat. They arrange warm berths for the most vulnerable. Their kindness is a balm on our wounds. Yet nothing can truly ease the ache inside me. I learn from a whispered conversation that over 1,500 people died in the disaster. The sheer number is beyond comprehension. It is as if an entire small town simply vanished into the sea overnight. Mothers, fathers, children, friends, gone. And among them, my love. Later that day, perhaps it is afternoon, though time still feels unreal, I write my name on the survivor list, and beside it I must write, Mr. R., husband, not on board. The finality of those words sends me reeling. Hopes die all over again as each name not found is finally marked as lost. I wander back outside to clear my head. On the Carpathia's open deck, I find a quiet corner. The ship is now steaming away from the wreck site, carrying us toward New York, but I turn one last time to look northward. In the far distance, I can still make out the shapes of icebergs scattered across the ocean, gleaming like giant tombstones in the bright day. Somewhere beneath those gentle waves lies the wreck of the Titanic, 2.5 miles down on the ocean floor, holding within her the stories of that night and the precious lives that will never return. A light breeze ruffles my hair. It carries the faint smell of salt and something new, the scent of approaching land, perhaps. I close my eyes, letting the cool air wash over my face. In my mind's eye, I see the Titanic as she was yesterday, proud and splendid, slicing through a sunlit sea, her decks alive with laughter and hope. I recall my own laughter, sitting on that bench under the stars, dreaming of the future. It all seems... I lean on the railing and gaze at the horizon ahead, where the sky meets the sea in a haze of morning light. The ocean is calm today, gentle waves lapping at the ship's hull, as if the waters themselves have returned to innocence after the violence of the night. As Carpathia carries us onward, I silently vow that I will never forget what happened here, nor the people who were lost. I will carry their memory like a sacred lantern inside me, keeping it alight for as long as I live.
The sun climbs higher, spreading a golden path over the rippling Atlantic. Despite my sorrow, I notice the warmth on my face and the subtle beauty of the day. Seagulls appear, wheeling in the air, a sign that we are drawing nearer to land. Life in its obstinate way continues, and I realize, through a swelling in my chest, that I am still capable of feeling gratitude. Gratitude to be alive, to have known love, to have witnessed both the heights of human grace and the depths of human tragedy in one long, terrible night. With a trembling sigh, I whisper a few lines from a psalm we sang in the Titanic's second-class church service just the morning before. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. The words drift away on the sea breeze. I am not particularly devout, but in this moment, those ancient words comfort me. We have indeed walked through the valley of death, and those of us left must find a way to keep walking, to honor those shadows behind us. As I stand there lost in thought, the soft sounds of the ocean and the low thrum of Carpathia's engines create a strangely soothing lullaby. My exhausted body sways gently with the ship's motion. I realize I am utterly drained, every muscle, every emotion spent. And for the first time since that calm night on Titanic's deck, I feel the pull of sleep. Perhaps it is safe now to surrender to it. I find a spot to sit, still wrapped in my blanket, and rest my head against the bulkhead. My eyelids grow heavy as I watch the sunlit waves dance and play against the hull. In my mind, I hear the echo of the Titanic's band, not the frantic ragtime of the climax, but the tender strains of a hymn. The ocean's rhythmic rocking and the distant cry of seabirds become my requiem and my reassurance. I close my eyes. Images float behind my lids. The Titanic's grand staircase bathed in warm light, the stars over the Atlantic, my husband's kind smile, the sparkling ice field at dawn. These memories mingle and blur, no longer sharp with pain, but gentle, like a soft watercolor wash of emotion. In this half-dream, half-waking state, I feel as if the boundaries between past and present, between those lost and those living, have dissolved. We are all together in this quiet moment, connected by the sea, by the night we shared, by the love that even death cannot diminish. A tear slips down my cheek, but it is warm now, not bitter. A tear of acceptance, maybe even of peace. As I drift into a light doze, cradled by the murmur of the waves, I carry with me a simple truth gleaned from this long, fateful night. Life is fragile and precious beyond measure. Every gentle breeze, every star, every beloved face, these are treasures to cherish for however long we hold them. In the end, as the Carpathia steams onward under the morning sun, I allow myself to rest. The worst is behind me, and a new day has dawned. Though my heart is heavy, it is also filled with profound gratitude and love. And as I finally slip into slumber, I am accompanied by the ocean's tender song and the faint, cherished memory of a calm night on the Titanic, when the world was still whole and full of dreams.